Hey everybody, what's up? Today we're going to be talking about eccentric training and how we use it at Strive. So the eccentric muscle contraction is one of the 3 muscle contractions that we are able to perform during movement. So today we're going to be talking about how we train it eccentrically. So the first way that we train it eccentrically is basically when we teach a beginner or youth athlete a new movement. I want them to be able to feel the muscle pattern or the muscle group that is working, and therefore I want to slow everything down and for them to kind of slow down and get confident in that movement pattern. That obviously leads to less injuries that happen, which should be, as a strength and conditioning coach, the utmost importance. Then it also targets tendons, joints, and ligaments, which is, as a lot of people know, is a little bit harder to get to than just muscles because of lack of blood flow. Then when we look at eccentric training, we've got to think about absorption. So things like landing from a jump or deceleration during a sprint. And that's usually where injuries really occur. So not really during the production phase, but really how we absorb, how much we can tolerate, and then how quickly we can tolerate it, and in what plane of motion are we absorbing the force in. So we'll be talking about that later in our practical. Then finally, as most people think of eccentric training, they think of hypertrophy, which can be used, everybody thinks of aesthetics, but can be used to really protect the muscles and the joints, which in the long run increases performance. So we're gonna go into our practical and show you 3 different ways of how we use eccentric training. Okay, so this is the traditional form of eccentric training. I'm gonna do a 5-second eccentric squat. So basically what I'm trying to really target is how much force I can absorb. For me, I usually like to do lower reps of eccentric training and a little bit heavier weight. So obviously, everybody's gonna have to take into consideration how many reps you're doing, as well as the percentage of intensity that you're trying to do it with. So I'm gonna do 3 reps of a 5-second squat, get underneath the bar, and set, go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm gonna try and drive it up with some force. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Drive it up with some force. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And drive it up with some force. And I'm gonna crash. So that would be our traditional 5-second eccentric squat. The second thing that we're gonna look at is the rate of force absorption, basically meaning how fast I can absorb the force. In this case, I choose to use bands, and I'm gonna treat the bands like they're dumbbells, okay? So there's obviously kinetic energy pulling me down actively, but if you're not comfortable with doing this, you can always attach bands to a barbell. But I'll show you in a second why I like this version. So I can either do squat jumps and get as high as I can and rapidly produce force against the bands, or I could work on my stiffness and just do pogo jumps, okay? So the reason that I love these bands so much is I can get a little bit of contrast inside of a set. So let's say I'm doing pogo jumps for 3 seconds. When the coach yells, go, I then let go of the bands and jump as high as I can. So ready, go, 1, 2, 3, go, let go of the bands, jump as high as I can. So that's the reason I like to use bands. Remember, being able to absorb force at a high rate is a very, very big key to success. So then the last point of eccentric training is hypertrophy. So it's not so much from an aesthetic standpoint, more from an injury prevention standpoint. We like to address hypertrophy in certain ways. As everybody knows, eccentric training, since it's slow, great for time under tension, but then it also allows us to feel the muscles, especially in muscles that we don't activate as well. Say, for example, the upper back. We might want to consider coming down a little bit slower, even slowing down the concentric portion to allow ourselves to really feel those muscles. So when addressing, say, metabolic stress or muscle damage, eccentric training is an awesome way to do that. We're gonna go through a little bit of practical work, and we're gonna show you 3 ways that we work eccentric training at Strive. Super maximal training. So super maximal basically means that we're lifting heavier than we're actually capable of lifting, meaning that we're able to come down with the weight, but unable to come up. So a lot of you may be frowning right now, because I would be as well. The old school way would be to have a certain amount of weight that you wouldn't be able to lift concentrically, and have 2 guys stand on each side, and you come down and they help you back up. That's all good and all, but we want to make sure that safety is the priority here. At the same time, I'm gonna be working unilaterally, which means in on one leg. So from here, what I'm going to do is say I'm heavily, these dumbbells are a little heavier than they are now, and I have 2 or 3 weight vests on me. I'm gonna come down in 5 seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Oh, I can't stand up, so I'm gonna stand up with 2 legs, okay? 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Stand up with 2 legs. Last one. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And this is basically what we call our 2-1 super maximal eccentric training.